any technical difficulties.
Okay, welcome, Shelley. I lost my agenda. First item on tonight's agenda is the Elevage Phase 1 Development Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On April 12, 2021, City Council approved the Elevage Phase 1 plat. City staff, city attorney, and the developer's attorney have been working to finalize a developer's agreement for Phase 1 of this project for review and approval. A draft proposal was submitted to City Council for consideration at the April 26, 2021 council meeting. After discussion of this item, the proposal was tabled to enable the city and the developer's attorneys to clarify several minor points in the agreement. As this is a time-sensitive matter, a special city council meeting was called for tonight to receive the submission of the final Phase 1 developer's agreement. The developer's agreement is in your packet, and staff recommends that city council review and consider approval of the Elevage Phase 1 developer's agreement.
We also got a red line version this afternoon that highlighted the changes that were made. So hopefully folks got that. Is there a motion on this item tonight?
I'll make a motion for approval of the Elevage Phase 1 Developers Agreement.
I'll second.
Motion made in second. Any discussion?
I have some questions about it. Just some things I'm not understanding 100%. I don't have any problems with anything. I just want to understand better. And the first thing is on page 4, it talks about the Phase 1 property means the portion of the property described as Lot 1, Block 1, and outlots A and B. We're only approving the particular building that we've discussed so far, right? We're not really approving any additional things that might go up in lots A and B. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Susan, can you see the screen that I've shared?
Yes.
Okay, this is the service road. This is where Get You Moved used to be. This is where Feral Gas used to be. So what we're considering, and this may not be the exact dimensions of the plat layout, but these are the two lots in consideration. One of them being the planned Quick Trip lot, and the other one is still open. The developer hasn't sold it or negotiated a deal to develop it yet.
Okay, perfect. That's all I was curious about, because, so my other question is, have all the permits he needs been acquired already, or does he still have more permits to acquire?
No, he hasn't done any permits yet because the plat has to be approved prior to submission of any plans for consideration. So once the plat's approved, then he can apply for his permits.
All right. And then my final question is, do you know exactly what the water and sanitary system is going to cost the city, the taxpayers? Or do we have an estimate of what it's costing to expand over in that area? I don't know if that prices ever came up before.
Yeah, they were the cost of the utility installation for the entire project from 186th Avenue all the way to Viking is $1.3 million for the utilities, and that is proposed to be paid for from an American Rescue Plan grant, so it will not involve any city monies.
Okay. And then my final question is, the construction is only a 1-year warranty. That seems kind of low. Is that the standard? I thought they had 10-year warranties, so I don't really know, but.
No, that is the standard. Now you can buy additional warranties, but that's the standard warranty for utilities projects and road projects of this nature.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Jack, could you take roll call vote, please?
Yes. Suzanne Urkel.
Aye.
Ryan Mundell.
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Tim Harrington,
Aye.
Shelley Beck.
Aye.
Motion passes.
That motion passes. We need a motion to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne seconds. Jack, can you take roll call vote, please?
Suzanne Urkel,
Aye.
Brian Mundell,
Aye.
Tim Harrington. Tim Harrington,
He's frozen in time.
Yep.
Aye.
There we go.
Shelley Beck,
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
That
That
motion
motion
passes.
passes. This special meeting is adjourned. We will all see each other in the next meeting here in a few minutes. So.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'll bring the May 3rd City Council work meeting to order. Is there a motion on tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's
Suzanne, you're
agenda.
mute.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
You're still on mute.
No, I'm not.
No, she's not.
Does there anyone make a motion?
Make a motion to drop tonight's agenda.
I'm on mute. I'm sorry, Suzanne. Suzanne made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made in second. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Jack, could you take roll call vote, please?
Suzanne Urkel,
Aye.
Shelley Beck,
Aye.
Tim Harrington. Tim Harrington,
Tim's frozen.
It's frozen again.
Brian Mundell,
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye, and that motion passes. Next on the agenda is for the planning commission to call to order. There is a quorum of planning commission. So Wanda?
At this time, I will call to order the joint,
Keep
I
going.
will call to order the joint city council and planning commission meeting.
Actually, you only need to bring planning commission to order, but that works too. So first item in tonight's agenda is the joint work meeting with the city council and planning commission, and this is for a presentation from the developers from Alavage Development on their master plan. And tonight, Stephanie's here and Corey Verstadt from Alavage. Stephanie?
Yeah, I'm just gonna hand it over to Corey. I know Corey has somewhat of a presentation tonight as we go forward with this for the next phases of Elevage.
Good evening, Corey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council and Planning Commission members. So tonight, just to kind of get everyone up to speed a little bit, just previous to this, we've been working on the first phase of the development agreement, and because things have kind of gone all the way right down to the 12th hour, I'm gonna shorten what we're gonna talk about tonight a little bit, keep it a little bit more brief, and try to get more feedback today. We've updated somewhat of our concept plan, which I'm about to share with you, and talk to you guys about our next phase of the project. And we will go much further in a presentation and get it out to everyone individually too as well, so they can see as we kind of go through this phase. It's going to be quite a phase to get all the final details of this project. But what we wanted to do first was, you guys have been seeing a concept plan of our PUD from one point of view of a civil company that we hired, and then we brought in some other experts along the way. As I've been telling Jack and Stephanie on staff, that I just haven't felt, like the project's quite right yet. First and foremost, we were very fortunate to, one, start a project with the city and us and MnDOT and getting the roadway. And just to kind of give everyone history again, the roadway and stuff, this is kind of a joint venture right out of the gate in terms of we donated the land in and kind of did a little bit of a swap. So we're all together, on the project long term. And it's been a long process, as you guys know, but now that everything is kind of flowing and going and there's activity, I just want to make sure everyone that, because, people's seats have changed and roles, and different council, different commission, people along the way. So just want to make sure everyone understands that we've been kind of working on this from day one together. And then number two, as we started a concept plan, what was the comp plan, of the city and what the goal was. And the first goal, is this was supposed to be kind of up central part of the city, kind of a new hub. And that's why the importance of the service road from here all the way to Viking and trying to make that all work together. And Quick Trip, we started working with them and Holiday Corp right out of the gate, and Quick Trip kind of won out and really wanted to be in East Bethel. And they signed on right away, seeing the project as a major, a way for them to come into the city. As you guys know, have wanted, I think, Quick Trip to come to city for a while, and they're ready to be here. And so, now that Quick Trip's here, to get everyone an idea, we got to make a pretty substantial actually investment just to get them in here on this site. This is not a very easy site. We have, as you know, East Bethel, there's a lot of water issues and things that we have to deal with in soils and stuff. And we have very a difficult process and just, like we're still going back and forth with Quick Trip just to get it right. So their tanks don't float to the top of the ground over time. And so like just little things like that, as we go through this, I want everyone to know that everyone's been working really well together as we go, step by step. And now that we have kind of a developers agreement in place and just overall, and then as we hit each phase, one of the things that's going to be critical is as we show you this next plan is what is the purpose of this plan and why am I headed down this path? And first and foremost, I think the thing I hear number one from residents, from staff, from people in the area is they want a grocery store. And a grocery store is critical. And I live in a city, I won't say what city, that has, people wanted a certain grocery store every day of the week. That's all you'd hear on social media. And you guys all know as well as I do that, rooftops matter to some degree in order to get something activity in. And so what are the two kind of avenues I'd like to go down, and hopefully as the development, takes shape is, yes, I'd like to be able to bring in a grocery tenant, but I'd also like to be able to bring in some medical services and other things that could be, useful in the community. And you kind of got to be able, in order to get that to all happen, you got to be able to, sell them the idea, why are they coming here? And so the development that we first started off with that you guys saw 2 years ago conceptually was your traditional big box, big thing, one big long road, runway. And I just never really got comfortable. I always knew that the Osborne property and stuff to us to the south would be developed and it would be a great, neighbor to our development and hopefully it will spur on something. I think we're all ready for something to spur on up here a little bit. But again, what's the goal of my development? And so I brought, just so you guys know, I have actually since fired my civil company. I've brought in a new civil engineer, and I've also brought in ESG, which is probably one of the top architects in Minnesota. They do a lot of development, and they're doing a lot of development nationally with neighborhood type developments and trying to do something. And because we have different soils and because we have different elevations all throughout the property, we have to find a mix or a balance that will work for this site. And so what I started sharing with staff is kind of this farmhouse modern, but really what I want to focus on today, and I want to get feedback or just, I guess the first initial reaction is just understanding, where I'm coming from, what my goals are, and, just also answering questions. So I'll share the screen here. I'll try to do that. Sure. There we go. Sorry about that. Is everyone able to see the screen? Is everyone able to see, or Mr. Mayor, are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things, I want to point out on this project is if you can see my cursor right here, this area right here is where obviously the new Quick Trip is going to go. That was just approved, that site plan right in there. And then there's another pad site that goes right along here. The new roundabout, we've not overlaid that yet into here yet, but, and then you'll see just to the north, you'll see this, kind of blue ponding area, this is actually a wetland area that we cannot really touch without having impacts. The city has some impacts in the roadway. We will have a small footprint of an impact with Quick Trip's lot and going through that process to get their lot finalized and done for them. But the other water areas right here that you'll see right here with the middle island and the one to the north, a little more up here, these are ones that we're going to have to actually build. And one of the things is in order to do this next phase and kind of how we have to lay it all out in order to economically, because we have to bring all the utilities across property and they're all different elevations in order for it to make it all work, because the water table level is such in East Bethel, we have to create some pretty large ponding in order for this development to work properly. And so what we're trying to do is incorporate them into a whole neighborhood. And so what I instructed ESG to do was to think of a way to create a neighborhood that would make sense, and incorporating these, larger, kind of water features, that becomes an amenity to the neighborhood. So, and, for, the term that they, that uses inside the world of everyone there is cluster development. And there's a lot of trees on this site, and you can kind of see along the east side with the golf hole that goes along here. And being a golfer myself, I wanted to make sure that we design, the shape and how things are kind of, coordinated so that, if there's enough buffer zone. And just walking the property recently, you can really start to see how important some of these trees all on this back area are. Now, everyone knows also with development, as you start cutting into your soils and stuff, you're going to have impacts everywhere. And so, we're working hard on a tree survey right now that'll make sense. But in order to do this right, we really need to try to capture as many areas of trees. And if you look over here on the right-hand side where my cursor is up on the northern end, we're trying to keep these big sections of trees all throughout this development of green area. You can see all the bubbling and stuff. And what that's trying to do is create little pockets of, small, so it doesn't seem so big, because otherwise the other plan was just grade the whole site, replant everything, create big roadways. And ESG has been advising me to completely go away from that design. I think it's a terrible design for the future. They really want to create a sense of community. And what they're trying to do is and you can kind of see the roadways, they kind of angle and go at different, so there's no real long runway. And they narrow the streets to try to create people to drive slower and it's more walkable. And you get big, long, I live in a certain neighborhood that has large runways and they call it a parkway. And I'll tell you what, the cars just go zooming through the neighborhoods. And we're really trying to get away from that. And so the other thing too, you'll see in the middle area here, we're creating a kind of a central corridor, whether it be some type of a clubhouse feature for the whole neighborhood, and a large green area that kind of is the entry point of the neighborhood. So as you're coming up the service road up this way, you'll be able to turn into the neighborhood here and go in. And the grocery store, that's a 20,000 square foot site that can handle, the parking can handle a 20,000 square foot. We think that's probably the model that's going to work here in the city. Much bigger, and I don't think we're going to attract with today's technology of shipping and delivery and everything else. I just don't know if I necessarily see that. I don't know that I want to go after a bigger box than that. And then kind of the 12,000, square foot medical office building and stuff that seems to be, based on some of the research that we've done, it seems to be the right size building for up here and can maybe house several different tenants. Most of our residential housing sites, one of the big key components here is ESG as a design and a model, this kind of farmhouse modern look that we're going with. And they're trying to create more front yard backyards and not side yards. And some people will say, well, I don't like that. They're too close on top of each other, but they believe strongly in design that, people can have, it's a proper placement of windows and how it's all shaped and have a much larger backyard. And so we have 40 by 125 in depth on the average home, and then 50 by 100, 50 by 100. for a total of 115 home sites. Originally, just right before this, we were right around 128. The previous model was closer to like 55 homes that you guys saw 2 years ago. Again, the thing about that is we have so much dirt to move on this site. We're trying to create a lot of slab on grade and things so that we're not just destroying all of the trees and ruining and just clear cutting everything and kind of starting from scratch. It's just not really where I want to head with the site. The more and more I walk, the more and more the opportunity I see that the property needs to keep as many of the tree and the buffer along the golf course. So really what we're trying to show you is this is really the next phase that we're trying to work on right now. And we're trying to rapidly work on it, just so everyone knows. We are ready to continue to keep going with this. Obviously, the Quick Trip site, we're going to begin construction on immediately, submitting permits. And then really the next phase is because of all of the work with stormwater management on the site, we have to do this all in one big phase, this next phase realistically. Granted, there could be phases within each of the residential as we can, create it as 5 sections or something, but we have to do the groundwork, the utility work and the road work in order to get it to kind of all work and flow. So maybe we might start on the southern side first and then do, right where the amenity and forward, somewhere in that area would be the northern section. But in order to attract these other tenants that I believe the city and its residents would like, we got to show some activity and something that, fits. And I don't want this just to be a simple big pad site. I'm trying to avoid that. I want it to be something a little more unique and a little more thought out. And not a lot of times do, developers and residential bring in, big time architects to help design neighborhoods, but I just felt like it needed a change. Too often there's no uniqueness put in the home, and we'd have some pretty strong architectural standards all throughout this neighborhood. It would be association managed to maintain its standards. That would be very, very important to me. And we got rid of, right now, not saying that it wouldn't be part of the future phase, but down here on the southern part of the development, we have different wetlands throughout this site. And we could incorporate other type multifamily senior housing potential. The codes of senior housing is starting to change rapidly. And so all those things are factored into our decision making. And I really didn't want to do a bunch of townhouse development. I wasn't really interested in doing multifamily, even though that's a lot of what I'm doing right now as a developer. I just really felt like this was a better fit for it. And I saw a couple different projects that ESG has done throughout the country, and I was completely, wowed by what they've created in certain towns and just how beautiful it ended up turning out because of the thoughtful architecture that went into it. So with that, I mean, I don't want to go much further than that because today, like I said, we just got through kind of our development agreement literally within the hour and kind of agreed to and wanting to make sure this is a very expensive phase for me as a developer to go down a path. I could have stuck with my original plan. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing that first phase. And like I said, one thing you'll find is me as a developer, the projects I've worked on, I work very hard to make sure it's right. We own and control the stuff we do. I have no intention other than staying and seeing this project all the way through. And it matters to me what it looks like and its functionality in the community. I know this is a big change for East Bethel. I'm fully aware of it, having grown up in Ham Lake, well, most of my life. And I will tell you that I get it. And so a lot of people might see this kind of flat, layout right now, but I think it's important. They first understand the goal of what I'm trying to do with the overall development. So, and look at where it was and kind of look at where it is now. And hopefully they'll see that I'm really trying to create a sense of community here within this neighborhood. So with that, I guess I'll say, ask away with questions. I'll do the best I can in answering them. And if not, we'll take notes and we'll keep circulating and getting as much information out as fast as possible.
All right, thanks, Corey. Questions? I see Shelley has a question. Shelley Beck, council member.
My question is, how many homes did you say approximately could fit in there?
Right now, we're at 115 homes, Shelley.
And the average lot size is gonna be what for them?
40 by 125 or 50 by 100. And there'll be between 3 and 4 bedroom units.
Okay, so it's not gonna look like a Blaine's Club West.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Everyone's interpretation of architecture is somewhat different, Shelley. I mean, you know, hopefully the architectural standards that I'm going to put in place here are just far different than a national builder. They're just going to be.
Are they single family homes or are they?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yes, they
perfect.
are.
Thank you.
Corey, do you have any renderings?
I'm
of
not
what the
really.
homes may look like?
I'm not really willing to share that. We are working on 3 prototypes right now that we're going to release, Mr. Mayor, to the council. And so, like I said tonight, because we got up to this point last Friday when we hadn't had the agreement completely done yet, I was a little concerned. Because I'm racing these people to a timeline, and so I told them we need to get the agreement done first and get the first phase, because if first phase doesn't happen or we don't agree to, there's no phase 2 to continue on, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to make sure we got to there first. I know that Jack and Stephanie have seen images and stuff of what we're working on. And so for me, you know, I'm happy to circulate to everyone and begin and continue that dialogue throughout as we come back to the next stage of planning commission. But hopefully the goal tonight is more, you know, first reactionary. What do you think? And then also just kind of seeing the water and just for everyone to understand really actually what's going to have to go into this. It's considerable. So
Suzanne.
I have a couple of questions or comments. First, I want to say thank you for keeping as many trees as you can. I like that better. I think it looks a little too compact, but I'm going to reserve that judgment until I see something in the future, what it looks like. I'm wondering if any of those water areas, if a public swimming pool could go in any of those kind of areas, because residents have asked, you know, how come we don't,
Well-
none of the towns around here have a swimming pool?
well, you know, like all things, you know, I'll be as kind as I can as a developer, but the pool would belong to the neighborhood that they would live in for the association, like at the amenity. If we're able to put it
Right.
in, that would be. However, the public, you know, trails and stuff that we'll create throughout the neighborhood. And then also, you know, as you can see, we also have, you know, walking paths around the water. We also have canoes, kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, kind of the idea of around the pond and that central island you can see kind of right here. We're trying to create areas there that we most likely would like to have some type of a public pool, you know, for the neighborhood here, the association. But just due to security, Suzanne, and everything else that needs to go within it. And I'm quite sure that my attorney would chime in any second to remind me of that. You know, it just, yeah. It would be a difficult thing to say it's a public, you know, for the whole city residents. You know, just as being a developer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where you have that community building, is there going to be a park playground in there too? Or
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, we're calling it like a town, like kind of a town, a big, larger green area right in the middle. So we're
All right.
trying to create a entry point as you come down the service road and you look in and you start going this way. You see a whole central area, you know,
Right.
to the area. Some defining moment that when you come in, there's some central area to it.
Okay. Now, these houses that you're planning on, are you thinking like they're going to be cookie cutter type houses, or are they all going to be different? Do you know right now, or you don't know yet?
We have 3 designs right now throughout the neighborhood that we're working on. Some floor plans will change within side depending on whatever, our civil engineers tell us at the end, whether or not they could have a basement. There's some areas that a lot of houses will be able to have basements. There's some that will not, because it doesn't make any sense to put them in, due to the soil conditions in certain areas. So, but right now we have 3 designs. We're very happy with where they're headed. There's some tweaks I'm making to the exterior of some of them. But if you could think of very farmhouse modern, and again, I'll circulate to everyone, what that look will be like. But right now, really only about 3 designs. I'm not ruling out that we wouldn't have 5 designs in the end, but right now we're very focused on 3 that work well in this footprint. If you look closely at the plan, you'll see some are longer, more depth, but again, those are all different designs with windows, and there's some that are a little more square, some that are, depending on how many rooms they have upstairs. But all two car garages right now, no 3s right now as it sits today. So, but that's as far as we're at right now. A lot of the civil work still has to be done, Suzanne, in order to fully determine the impact. When you start doing all the grading in certain areas.
Right. Makes sense. All right, my final question is, right now you're just about doubling what we had planned before. Do you think that's gonna make traffic a nightmare in that Viking 65 intersection or the other?
Actually, well, Susan, if I may, I think I know what you're asking. We're actually not doubling, Suzanne, from our original plan. We had multifamily, senior housing, we had all kinds of other pieces in there. We believe this is a more balanced development. If you look at the original concept plan, we had multifamily in there, which increased the number of units substantially. And we had more townhouses. What we're doing is we're focusing on more on the residential and creating more of a neighborhood and trying to fully jam in, every type of use possible. I was focused more on how do you really create a great community. Look, as a multifamily developer, it doesn't belong everywhere. It doesn't belong everywhere. And there has to be a need for it. And your numbers and your studies have to show it. And I don't believe the type of product that I want right here, that the multifamily could match the type of product in the residential. I don't think that the market would support it. I'm a Class A multifamily developer. I have no intention of building anything but Class A. So I just don't see it as a fit. And again, with the senior housing, it's not my forte. There are major changes coming in the development rules and building codes for senior housing. And I don't know that we have the land area to create the type of Class A product yet. Not saying it won't be done or won't be considered, but we're focused on, the Quick Trip, more of a daycare facility on the other property that fits the community. And then we're really focused on trying to land a good tenant grocer and focusing on the medical, which some of our other partners in our development world are very tied into and feel that this is a good fit for up here.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'm not multifamily, high density. I really didn't want to see go in over there, so I'm a little more happy with this than the other plan, but I still have to see this in more detail. But thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, other questions or comments? Anyone? Make sure I'm not missing everyone. Trying to see everyone here. I'll make a comment that this weekend I happened to be driving through Woodbury on my way back from Iowa, and I don't find myself in Woodbury very often, and it's probably been 5 years, and it's incredible just how much housing is in Woodbury, and within their sea of residential housing, there's pockets of. I was at Cardinal Crossing. I don't know if that sounds familiar, Corey.
Yes.
And I think it was a similar type of development like you're proposing. Everything's fairly compact. I'd say very compact. And certainly for those of us who have lived in East Bethel for a while, it's incredibly, compact. But there's certainly a neighborhood feel to it. It's almost instant in terms of neighborhood feel. And the one thing I keep reminding myself is, we as council members and as commission members, we don't need to like it because we want to live in it or because we don't want to live in there, but, that type of housing. But, there are folks that do. And my view on this is it's another option that we have for housing in our city that although we have in some neighborhoods, some are older neighborhoods, but we don't have any newer housing. And I think, a few years back when Viking Preserve was proposed and then eventually approved, that was our first, what we call high density housing in the city, new high density housing. And I mean, it was a little challenging to accept the fact these are all small lots. But what I'm amazed is the fact is that Viking Preserve is entirely sold right now. That 47 home development is going to be completely built out within 2 years. And so there's certainly a desire and a need for this type of housing. So I think it'll take getting used to in terms of seeing it. But again, it's not anywhere where I would live. Any other comments, questions you have for Corey tonight? Tom. You're on mute, Tom. We still don't hear you. Sorry, Tom. I don't think any of us are hearing you. Can you use the chat? Use the chat function. In case not everyone can see it, Tom's question is, what is the comparison on commercial from the first design to the current design?
We had, Tom, we had a little bit more like commercial, like retail strip mall kind of feel. And we had a quick service style restaurant, more kind of a smaller pad site. But as we take shape with it in order to make room for the water that's, for our runoff, our stormwater ponds and stuff, as we start to lose certain areas. I mean, I've got to have 4 acre, 5 acre type ponds. So we are definitely shrinking some of that, but we do believe it's the right balance. And I really, as someone that also owns a strip mall, I'm fortunate to be full. I just don't believe the strip mall future. A lot of empty bays, and if you go up and down 65, it's, everyone has a great idea that it's going to go great, and a lot of times they're failing, and at the cost of construction today, it's not a risk worth taking today. And so, again, concentrating on the medical side, on the real actual needs of the community versus in the hopes of a start, as much as you'd love to support a startup, small business or retail shop up in the area. I think what the city of East Bethel needs probably more than anything else is just the essential services that need to be here first. And I think because of that, more stuff will come. You miss some of the big stuff and you can't really drive some of the other commercial components. So again, what we focused on is Quick Trip, a daycare facility is what we really want to put up here. Especially now that the city has helped kind of clean up that other area to the south, which has been very helpful. We're able to kind of create another nice little pocket back there that makes sense. And again, like our one of our big focuses is as a grocer. If for some reason we could never land that, we might have to look at a different avenue for commercial, but we feel confident we can get it.
We still can't hear you. Does that answer your question, Tom? Tom's question is, yes, but how about residential metrics? Are they including setbacks?
The setbacks at the end of the day will be presented in our actual overall plan, Tom, as we inside of a PUD, once we have designs created, we'll go in with our plan conceptually to the planning commission requesting inside of each of those phases what our setbacks ultimately end up being with the design. So that's part of a PUD, a planned unit development, to allow us to be able to come in and ask, for our design. So it gives the planning commission and council flexibility to work within our overall design inside the PUD. If I'm saying that correctly, Mike.
Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Does that answer your question, Tom? Okay. Any question, comments from others?
Mr. Burstad, well, concerning the grocery store, what size in comparison is a 20,000 square foot grocer as comparing to like a Cub or the Coburn's that's an Isani or like an Aldi? Comparably, what kind of size is that?
A lot of the Aldis are right around 20,000 to 25,000 square feet. There's a Coburn's model out there. There's Hy-Vee's got a model. Fresh Time's got a model like that. You're going to see more and more people, I think, looking to enter into certain markets that have different size models. I mean, Quick Trip's even got different models. As you can see around the state, they have different. We're getting a little bit larger of a Quick Trip site here, just so you know, than traditional. So so those standards are changing rapidly. I would suppose that even, for example, in Blaine, the Hy-Vee that everyone's heard about, I would bet you that they're looking at that and back on the drawing board right now as to how they're actually going to come through with a design on that when they're done. It hasn't moved forward yet. It's sitting still because I bet you they're rethinking. The market's changing so rapidly because of the last 12 months of the pandemic. People are just changing their business models so fast. So I think it'd be hard pressed for me to pinpoint, where I think we're at, but we believe this is the right size for the area.
Yeah.
Fit the needs. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just to kind of picture it in everybody's heads. It wouldn't be a Cub. It wouldn't be the size of Coburn's and Isani. It'd be more like Aldi's.
I think realistically, I mean, it's never for me to decide as a developer ultimately. I mean, because the company's, you know, the elephant sits where it wants to sit sometimes when it can find its spot.
Yeah, but just
Yeah,
presenting it here.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
This is Councilman Tim Harrington. What's your timetable if things continue to move forward? When are you looking at maybe building your first home?
We would like to, you know, Elevage's goal right now is to begin immediately on the Quick Trip site. Now, Quick Trip, just so everyone's clear, their plan is not to actually start construction of their site till next year. And the reason why that is because the construction table and the timeline. And we also have some work and surcharging of the property that we are working with Quick Trip right now that, you know, even though there's a building there now today, there's some additional work. And, you know, as you bring more compaction to the site, that needs to settle for a period before they'll begin their construction. And Quick Trip has a very detailed construction timeline. So they'll start, but what we'll do is we'll get it ready. We'll close, then they'll announce their schedule to us. They'll own it at that point. You know, they do their own construction, but we would like to continue, hopefully as we work with staff, and you guys have been wonderful about doing special sessions and getting these things rolling along, but as we can get this plan shaped together, we would love to continue right after we do this pad site to continue on and never leave the site, to be quite honest with you. And so, first phase as soon as possible. We are closed and funded on this project, so everyone knows this is not a we hope we can. We're ready to go. As I stated before, you know, our neighbor and bank across the street, one of my longtime, you know, relationships, Village Bank, wanted to be very much. They're in the community, and they made sure they were the lead bank on this project with us. They'd love to know that they're helping to improve this community and bring more things and more, you know, services. So I just think that you'll see us keep moving very fast right now. You know, we're all kind of, I think, going through this process together a little bit right now, and I think we're getting comfortable with maybe hopefully where we're headed, and we don't intend to like kick this down the road anymore. We've been involved for years, and we're ready to go. You know, obviously last year is a year that we'd all like to throw out, as kind of just lost time, and we'll just forget about it. And I think that hopefully the bulldozers are coming soon, hopefully. So, and my team is ready to work as fast as possible to get submittals in. So they're all under contract. So maybe this fall, you know, maybe during the winter, you know, for the first pad site. It just kind of depends. And I'm sure all of you have heard the great stories of construction world right now. It's so phenomenal out there. So, yes, Suzanne, that's correct.
Corey, I think a lot is going to depend on lumber too.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
The
have
lumber
all
price has
steel
got to come
structure.
back down.
Yeah, it's pretty insane out there right now. So, but we think all that stuff will, in due time, will balance itself out.
Okay, any other questions?
Did we just lose a bunch of people?
No.
Anything else for Corey tonight? So Corey, what's the next steps for you in terms of submittals to us?
I think the next phase would be, in my mind, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, or Stephanie, jump in. But I believe Planning Commission with the next phase, which would be I would consider our daycare lot, you know, to fully be, you know, kind of fleshed out that design. And that's the goal, at least right now, because of the way we got to move dirt around. And then with all of the residential laid out with civil and completed, and we'd be submitting those drawings for that next phase. So, you know, to me, I'd see that. And then I think internally with staff, we would be working through each section of the residential piece and how we phase that, as we've discussed with Jack today and the city attorney, that we would just kind of roll in. So I think that would just be worked out within our developers agreement, each phase. What do we call it? You know, 4 phases inside the residential and then the 5th phase, the commercial, something like that, Mr. Mayor. I mean, that's how I'm seeing it.
Okay.
So a few weeks, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks in submittal would be the goal.
Okay, that's good. Is there any other questions on this item tonight from planning or council? All right, Corey, thank you very much for being here. And hang on one second here. I think Jack's struggling. All right, I think we got it. Corey. Okay. Jack, were you trying to say something there?
No, I was pointing out something to Glenn on the depiction that Corey had up there.
Okay. So unless there's anything else on this item, we will have planning adjourn their meeting, and then we'll proceed with council. Wanda?
At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Sherry, I'll make the motion for planning to adjourn.
Thank you, Sherry. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll take roll call. Sherry,
Aye.
Wanda,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Tom, and Glenn.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and
Thank you.
City Council for having us. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. All right, we're back on the council agenda. Item 6 is the 2022-2026 Parks Capital and Parks Acquisition Development CIP. You're on mute, Jack.
The Parks Commission prepares an annual capital improvement plan which updates projected projects, evaluates priorities, and establishes funding for these works for the coming year and for each of the subsequent years for a 5-year period. This plan is presented to City Council for their approval and used in the preparation of the 2022 budget. Attached in your packet is the 2022-2026 Parks Capital Improvement Plans developed from discussions at the March 9th and April 13th, 2021 Parks Commission meetings. The Parks Commission voted unanimously to recommend the attached plan to City Council and to include the 2022 projects in the city's preliminary 2022 budget for approved projects. An increase of $50,000 has been requested for the city transfer to the Parks Capital Fund for the 2022 budget. This increase would provide a total of $95,000 for Parks Capital Improvement projects for 2022. It is anticipated the park dedication fees from developers will provide an additional $50,000 to the Parks Acquisition and Development Fund for 2022. Staff is recommending review and this plan and the information for discussion. No action is required, but council may direct staff to modify the plan prior to submittal for formal council approval at the June 14th, 2021 City Council meeting. Nate Ashford, our Public Works Manager, is here to answer any questions regarding the Parks Capital Improvement Plan, which consists of 2 elements. It's the Park Acquisition Development Fund, which is funded by developers' fees, and the Parks Capital Fund, which is funded by a transfer from the City Council. So Nate's available if you have any questions on the submission.
Evening, Nate.
I got one for you. In 2025, it says Park Pavilion. Where's it going to be built?
You're cut out really bad there. Can you try again?
Oh, he froze.
Yeah. Until Tim comes back. Are there other questions?
Oh, I'm,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I think I caught part of Tim's question there. He was asking about in the first fund, the Park Acquisition and Development Fund under the 2025. It's in the blue on your, if you have the colored edition, but we just have a general term there as Park Pavilion. We had originally had a plan for a pavilion at Northland Manor Park, but after meeting with that development, they were not interested in that park. So we've kind of just earmarked that as an open spot to be placed in another park as the city council and park commission see fit. Did that answer your question, Tim?
yeah, that's good. Thanks.
I have a question or two. So the revenues coming from developers, are you sure? I mean, is this estimated that we're going to get this, or is it for certain that we're going to get this?
Yeah, so that first fund that you mentioned is from developers fees, and there was a number of years where we put this plan together and we never had any income in there. And up until the last probably 3 or 4 years, it's finally started to grow. So these sources that we have in here are just estimates based on kind of what we have seen in the last few years, but that could be zero, it could be quite a bit more. And we just have to kind of roll as we go. The beginning balance should be correct, so we do have enough to fund the 2022 project, and that's kind of what we're approving with the budget for next year, and the other ones can be moved around as needed.
Okay, and can you remind me where the John Anderson Trail segment is? Is that the one off of Baton or?
John Anderson is up off of Cooper Lake. It's on the west side of 65 at 233rd. I can show you on, I have a map here, I can. Okay, are you seeing that on your screen?
Yes.
So this is Cooper Lake. It's about 3 blocks west of Highway 65 at 233rd. And the trails, we have a swimming beach there. It's a really nice park. It's got a pavilion, indoor bathrooms, a nice playground, and there's some walking trails that exist. The plan is to add some additional walking trails there. There's a large portion of the property that at one time was developed on the west side of the lake here. And it's kind of been let to grow wild, but we put some walking trails around there that would border the west side of that lake. And then potentially a spur that would connect to this neighborhood here. We already have this trail easement in place. So that's a potential connection point to connect some different neighborhoods.
So is that the one that connecting one, the one this is talking about, or?
It's actually all of the dotted lines in here.
Okay.
So it'd be a couple loops, and this solid yellow line would be possibly a future driveway and parking lot, but that's not included in this portion. It's basically just the dotted lines is what we're looking at for next year.
Okay. So my other question is, on the Park Capital Fund page, the Whispering Oaks, that's the playground in my neighborhood, and it seems like it was just replaced and then some new pieces added, and so it doesn't seem like it would need to be replaced.
On the Whispering Oaks, it's only the main climbing structure that's that old design that we've replaced in a number of parks. So the part with the slide and the monkey bars and the climbing structure, we just put that bridge in there a few years ago and the fitness stuff. So it'd be just that one piece of equipment. That's a lot of the plastic is getting starting to fall apart on it, and the decking is kind of falling apart. So they're on the replacement schedule. If we get to that point and it still looks nice, we can always push it back a couple of years. We've done that with other parks too.
Okay. And my final question is, does Coon Lake Beach currently have a playground, or is this totally new plan for 2024?
No, they have a playground, and it was actually one that was moved from another park. So it's probably the oldest playground we have now after we do Booster Park this year.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Yep.
Other questions? Nate, I seem to recall in previous years, there were more trail sections that were in the CIP. With this one, we really only have the Anderson Park, correct?
Correct. So the Baton Trail segment, that was approved by the council and went out for bid, so that'll be constructed this year. We looked at the one at Northland Manor Park that went across the wetland. We've had that on there for a number of years. After we met with the development, they were not interested in that park. And the cost of crossing that wetland and the creek that goes through there, it would make that project pretty expensive for, right now, not a big need from the neighborhood. We have all the easements in place with the county so that we can build that at some time in the future, but it didn't seem like it was a very big priority for them. Maybe after the corner develops on Viking and 65, that could be something we revisit, but we just kind of put it on hold for now.
And then has there been any more discussion of is it Shawnee Woods? I can't remember the name of the development off of Baton that there's the city already owns the easement that connects up to 226 or 225th. Has there been any more discussion on that?
Yeah, our park commission has talked about it and they haven't recommended it yet. There again, we met with the neighborhood for that one and they were not interested in having the trail go through there. So it's up to the park commission and city council if they want to pursue that any further.
Okay. Has there been any, I think we talked about it last year, was there any research or planning into where we can put in these short sections of trails to help connect neighborhoods?
This John Anderson Trail is a good connection. We've got a number of them on our long-term plan, but those are kind of the three that we just talked about. They're the ones we had on there. The Shawnee Woods connection that would connect that whole area to the Booster Park area. It'd be a pretty simple project, pretty inexpensive too. And then, like we talked about before, the Northland Manor Connection Trail.
Okay. Is that Shawnee Woods Trail? I mean, that actually a more direct connection to the Baton Trail.
Correct.
So.
Yep. So we do have some open spots further down on our list. Part of the feeling from the park commission was that with a lot of this development that's taking place down along the water and sewer area, that we might have to develop a park down there at some time. So we might want to keep a little capital in place. If we do get the land set aside from park dedication to put in some amenities there with some of our funding with that. So it's a big area of need in the city. We don't have any parks in that whole south section of the city. So
yeah, particularly with the apartment buildings going into that area. So certainly nothing within walking distance.
Yep.
Any other questions from council for Nate? All right. Is that enough direction? We're not really changing anything here, so.
Okay, we'll get it back to the council for their approval at an upcoming meeting. Appreciate everything.
All right. Thanks, Nate. Have a good night.
You too.
Next item on tonight's agenda is the TIF District 1-5 schedule. Jack, you're on mute.
That's my standard habit tonight. Tax increment financing is a tool used by cities as a financing option for eligible projects using future tax revenues resulting from project improvements for infrastructure costs necessary for a development to occur. When a TIF district is established, the base amount of the property tax, which is the property tax at the time of development, is recorded using the pre-development rates before improvements. As property values rise due to the improvements, an increase in the actual property tax receipts above the base amounts is produced. Upon approval and certification of a TIF district, the base amount of property tax revenue continues to be received by the municipality to fund city services, and the increased tax revenue over that level is used to pay the cost of the infrastructure required for the project. The base amount remains unchanged and continues to the term or the early payoff of the TIF district. TIF offers the means for cities to provide gap financing for a project that could not happen but for the use of TIF funds to complete the financial package required for the proposed development. The city uses a pay-as-you-go policy in the creation of TIF districts and approval of funds needed for the projects. The use of this policy places essentially no risk on the city for the TIF note, as the city is not listed on the loan agreement as a responsible party or subordinate for that debt. In the pay-as-you-go TIF, or commonly called pay-go TIF, the process is generally as follows. The developer borrows money from a lender and pays for the upfront development cost. The developer pays their property taxes on the project that include the value increase of the post-development improvements. As with all property tax, their payments are made twice a year to Anoka County. The city receives their disbursement of their share of these taxes in June and December from Anoka County. The city's share of the taxes includes the pre-development base amount and the increment, which is the amount over the base created by the increase in valuation due to the post-development improvements. The city receives a breakout from the county of the increment amount, which is the amount above the base pre-development tax that is applied to each TIF note, less any special school district or other qualifying levies. The city then sends these funds to the lender for the amortization of the loan for the TIF note issued to the borrower. If there's a shortage of increment to meet the amortization schedule, the lender can specially assess the borrower for this amount to make up the difference. The city continues to act as the conduit for the payment of the borrower's improvement on the TIF note until this amount is paid in full or the term of the TIF expires, whichever comes first. Should the term of the TIF expire before the note is paid, the borrower is obligated for the balance, not the city. The term of the TIF cannot be extended. The city's function in the TIF process is to essentially ensure that the increment funds are sent to the lender for the loan repayment. Aggressive Hydraulics has announced plans to expand their manufacturing facility by an additional 40,000 square feet. This addition will provide 100,000 square feet at their location on Ulysses Street. This expansion will be a $2.8 million investment and create 20 additional jobs, bringing their employment total to 80 full-time employees, 85, excuse me. Aggressive Hydraulics has requested TIF assistance for this project. Qualified TIF eligible costs are paving, landscaping and irrigation, curb and gutter, sack and whack fees that total approximately $234,000. Construction is expected to start in the summer of 2021. A TIF application has been submitted and has been deemed complete by Ellers. Ellers' preliminary analysis of this project indicates qualifying cost of $234,000 and an increment generation of $190,000 over an 8-year term. TIF District 1.1-1 was created for the original Aggressive Hydraulics projects in 2013 and decertified as complete in December of 2020. This was a 9-year note for $225,000 and was paid off in 7 years. Attachment 1 in your packet is the schedule of actions needed for the procedure for City Council approval of TIF 1.5. This is an information item for discussion or questions and to provide the outline for the process that we will be looking at for the approval of this note. Essentially, the two meetings involve the city will be the EDA meeting on May the 17th, where the EDA will adopt or be a resolution will be proposed for adoption for the approval of TIF District 1.5. And if that's done, this will be submitted to City Council on June the 14th for a public hearing for TIF 1.5 and consideration of the resolution of approval of that district. So this thing is on pace and we will be seeing this coming up at the EDA and the council meeting on the 14th. I just wanted to give a little information and background on this and see if there are any questions on it.
Any questions on this? Has Aggressive Hydraulics prepared plans and site plans yet?
They're in the process of that. We haven't seen those. We will probably see those probably the day after this. We can issue building permits upon approval of that TIF district on June the 14th. So okay, we may see some preliminary stuff, but we can't receive any formal submissions until the 14th, after the 14th of June.
And are they changing anything in terms of access? I assume the expansion's on the west side,
That the expansion is on the north side.
north side, okay.
So we haven't seen, we've been told that the architectural finish matches what's already there. They'll have to do some expansion of parking lots a little bit, some curb and gutter. The street and their main water and sewer connection is already in, and their sack and whack charges for this project will be about $90,000.
Any questions for Jack on this? All right, move on then to item 8, return live meetings. Jack.
At the February 1st, 2021 City Council work meeting, Council reviewed the format options of remaining virtual, going to hybrid meeting, or return to in-person meetings. Council's consensus was to reassess the matter of returning to in-person meetings in 2 to 3 months. The City Hall was reopened to public-facing business on March 24th, 2021. Council requested the matter of the discussion of return to live meetings be placed on the April 5th, 2021 work meeting. At this work meeting, Council discussed the item and agreed that should Council return to in-person meetings, ideally commissions and authorities should conform to the same format for consistency. Council directed staff to poll the Parks and Planning Commission and the Economic Development Authority to seek input from those members before taking action on this item. Staff contacted all 3 of these groups and found that the Park Commission, of the 7 members, 5 members expressed no concerns over returning to live meetings as long as their members were vaccinated. 2 of the members have yet to respond to the request. On the Planning Commission, 6 of the 7 members had no objections to in-person meetings. 1 member was very concerned about the return and stated they would have to consider resignation should we move from the virtual format at this time. The Economic Development Authority, 4 of the 5 citizen members were not opposed to reinstating the live meetings as long as social distancing and masking were required in the meeting space. 1 member recommended the decision be laid for an additional 60 days before change was considered. Should there be a decision to return to live meeting, council chambers can accommodate no more than 20 persons under the current social distancing requirements. Masking would also be recommended to remain in place for live meeting member and audience attendance. Staff recommends that council discuss this matter and provide direction to staff as to the resumption of live meetings, where the decision be postponed at this time or be universal or selective for the council and boards affected by the decision.
Thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are we should go back to live meetings. We're actually supposed to be leaders in the city. The schools are all in session now, all the time. The surrounding cities meet, and many of them don't even have masking requirements, except for their city staff. So that's my opinion, but I'm doing whatever everybody else wants to do.
Well, I think last time we talked about it, we want to be consistent between the commissions, and I think the comments then is that the commission members were comfortable with going back to live meetings as well. And, based on, the query they made to commissions that all 3 of them have, there's at least 1 person that has reservations.
Jack, is there any requirement that if council goes back to live meetings, do the commissions have to?
That would be a decision of the council. They actually determine the meeting times, dates, and schedules. There's nothing that would prevent the council going back to live meetings and keeping the commission meetings virtual for a time being. I think we would like to see consistency if at all possible, but there has been some expression on at least two members on these commissions that they would prefer to wait or not do it at this time. But that would be a decision that would be totally up to the council on what they want to do for the format of those meetings.
Would having council meetings in person and commission meetings virtual be any sort of additional work for staff?
No, actually, it'd probably cut our workload essentially in half. There's always a little element of getting ready for these virtual meetings. And then there's also the possibility of some technological foul ups, which we've run into a couple times. One was tonight, but I just think it's it's something that is we need to consider and just set some type of policy. And it may not be, maybe we just wait another 30, 60 days, or we bring it up for consideration at the next meeting. But there are more places opening up. I didn't print any statistics from the Minnesota Department of Health. I don't want to profess to be an expert on this, but everybody can go to their website and see what the trends are. Again, even though the trends may be downward, there still should be careful consideration in what we do. If we do go back to live meetings, there should be the social distancing and masking requirements. We do have the council chambers that can be set up to accommodate the social distancing. There's dividers in place there, if that's a consideration, but it's solely a council consideration as to what we do, if we remain consistent or have a different menu for council and a different one for commissions, boards, and authorities.
Okay, so you haven't reviewed any of the infection rates or anything?
No, I've looked at them, but I would let everybody else look at them and make their own judgments. There was a little peak at the end of April where cases went up, but they're going down now. But they always seem to fluctuate. The more we open up sometimes, then the higher these things go. But I would encourage each person to look at that and make your own decision on that.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd say let's give it 30 days. If there's been no more spikes, then have at least council return to live meetings and let the commissions decide on their own as to their comfort level to return, if that's no problem with staff.
It would be no problem with staff.
I agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with letting certainly with letting the commissions make the decision on their own, and more so making sure that everyone's comfortable with it. So, I mean, they're the volunteer commissions. So, I just want to make a comment. One thing you said, Suzanne, about we're supposed to be leaders, and I'm not quite sure how you meant that, but I mean, I'll just say that our council and our staff have shown a leadership over the past year. When we've had neighboring communities that their council meetings, they didn't change at all. They didn't respect the social distancing guidelines. They didn't respect the mask, and went so as far as the past resolutions to state such that they're not going to follow the state mandates. But I think we've shown, and then I think more importantly, we've shown that we can still function as a council, as a city, during this time, and we adapt, and we show our leadership by promoting the fact that we're not working together because we don't have to. And I mean, there's obviously situations where you don't have these kind of options to do this virtually, where you have to meet, and that makes things a lot more challenging. But because we do have a choice, I think council's made the best choice over the last year on this whole issue. So I'd agree that wait the 30, 60 days till see how things happen. Everything seems to be leveling off, at least in our state. But again, to me, there's no necessary need.
I agree with you, Mayor. I did not mean it as an insult to anybody here. I think we've done a great job. I think the city staff has done an amazing job at keeping us going. I was thinking when I said we are leaders, that if we started the meetings, the commissions would eventually follow suit. So I didn't mean it as what you were, I think what you were thinking, I meant it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? And how about we revisit it next work meeting? Let's put it right on the agenda now. So, all right. And on to our last item tonight, the broadband plan RFP. Jack.
As we have discussed several times, and it's become more important and will become more important, there's a need for broadband extension and improvement of services in the city. The EDA has been discussing this for over a year and had several speakers and a couple of experts that presented some information to them. Essentially, what we've been told is don't expect Midco and CenturyLink and all the other ISP providers to solve your problems for you. That if we want this to happen, we're going to have to be an active partner. So as a result of this, and we had the discussion at council, another work meeting, and had two at the EDA, it was brought up that we should prepare, excuse me, a request for proposals for service for a broadband plan. We presented this to the EDA twice, and we have developed a draft for an RFP to develop the plan for improvement and extension of broadband internet service in the city of East Bethel, and it's included in attachment 1 in your packet. The broader components of this would be the assessment of the city's broadband internet infrastructure, needs and goals of the system, determining the role of the city in the execution of this plan, coordination of the service providers, identifying funding sources for improvements and extension, describing the scope of the work, defining the project deliverables, qualifications and references, and costs for their services. What we would do with this, we would send this out, and there's a list of about 20 some consultants that do this type of work in this upper Midwest area. We would submit a proposal to them to ask them to provide us with the directions in the RFP to see what would cost to produce this type of document, to give us a guide and an outline for starting on this so we can begin working with the ISPs, the county, with DEED and other funding agencies that might be able to help us address this problem. And the end product of engaging this professional firm for the development of the internet service plan will be the identification of areas that could potentially be served, existing areas that require service upgrade, funding sources, city cost participation, and coordination of providers to partner their efforts and resources to implement the plan. Preparation of the plan would be an EDA eligible expense should the contract be awarded for the work. Other sources of money could be considered as funding for this project should this be an item presented for approval and award by City Council. Funding for future improvements and service extensions identified by a broadband plan could come from grant sources that have not been identified as of yet, increased levies for EDA and HRA, create a special city fund to address internet service projects, and or other sources identified by the report itself. 2020 EDA funds are available and appropriate for the preparation of a broadband plan for the city of East Bethel in the amount of up to $65,000. Also, please note that the attached draft RFP includes consideration of some things that the city's never been involved in before, such as incentivizing private sector investment, engaging public-private partnerships, forming new cooperatives, or operating this service as a government utility on its own. These options require capital participation, in some case operational system beyond those of the current ISPs, both of which would involve the city in areas that have been absent of prior public involvement. The RFP is exhibited in attachment 1 is a draft copy presented for comment to the city council prior to a final presentation that can be proposed for consideration of approval at either the June 14th or 28th, 2021 city council meeting. So I'm looking for any questions or comments and any direction to continue to proceed on this matter, to present a document that we can send out for proposals. There's no cost for sending it out. We can at least test the waters and see what's out there, what we could expect to receive, and what the cost would be.
Jack, there seems to be still quite a few gaps and blanks and stuff. I assume, next time you present this to us, this will, the information will be included.
That's correct.
I as other typos, which I'm not going to bother with right now. The only comment I have, or I have two comments. One is on page 1 of the RFP. In the second paragraph, it talks about, I think I talked about this last time or at EDA, was that the network be ultimately scalable to 1 gigabyte to the homes. I think that's already outdated. I'm not sure what that number should be, but 1 gig is already available, at least in some areas. Although I'll tell you right now, my 1 gig is operating at 44 megs. So there is definitely some issues with Midco today. So
yeah.
But so my question really is then is are we shortchanging ourselves? I don't know what the number is, but so that's just a question. And then my other real comment is on page 5 of the RFP, which is I think page 18 of our packet. The very top, it just refers to one of the criteria being within a half mile of both sides of the fiber route. I assume that's sort of you just picked a number. So my only suggestion is make it 3/4 mile, because if that fiber route's going up 65, that way for sure we cover at least the corridor.
We will make those corrections.
Any other comments on this?
Jack, was there any discussion on satellite internet?
That'll be part of what will be studied as an alternative for service. The EDA, we did have a brief discussion on it. Nothing that was just more general in nature, but that will be probably one of the service options that come out of this, is those areas that cannot be feasibly served by fiber or cable may have to rely on satellite internet for the short term, intermediate, or maybe for a long term due to the densities that don't support that. So, and of course, too, there's major strides being made too in the deployment of satellites, and the improvement of this service is increasing all the time. So, while it's kind of not the most desirable option now, and as we go along in the short term, it may be a much better service option.
Yeah, because the things I've seen on the internet here and on TV is this broadband, it's not gonna be here for a long time. It's gonna be satellite internet, so. That's my only opinion.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably true, we just don't know what the times of that are.
Right. I mean, they're saying 5 to 10 years maybe before they really get something decent on the satellite internet, but I don't know.
And again, that's why we need to engage someone that's much more knowledgeable or is an expert in this field, so they can give us some advice on what routes to pursue to provide these services and improvement extent.
And a lot, several of the cities in town and in other areas of the country, they've got citywide Wi-Fi, but that only works if you got high density, and we don't have that. Although, something like Corey's plan, maybe there's certain areas of the city that will make sense to have that citywide Wi-Fi. There obviously is a higher density, but like Jack said, I think we need to get some experts to advise us.
Steve, your comment on the 1 gig, I wonder if we could include some sort of language that would be, that's ultimately scalable to a minimum of 1 gigabyte to homes with the possibility of upgrades.
That's exactly what I wrote in my comments on the page. So yeah, I'm thinking that's probably the answer. Say at least a minimum. So
yeah, if there's technologies out there that are easier to upgrade than others.
That makes sense. I think that's what's meant by the scalable is how flexible is this? And another thing, like Tim said, suggested the satellite, maybe there's something that, that can be done now that is, the right word is, reusable or somehow can transition into that satellite. I don't know if that satellite internet's going to mean that everyone's going to have a satellite dish. A lot of us already have satellite dishes, but so I think getting more information about that is going to be helpful.
I don't know if it'd necessarily be satellite because cell phones connect up to satellites with GPS. So I don't know. That's speculation, but yeah, I've heard of other things as to why the TV stations all went to digital versus broadcast. That was to free up certain transmission things because you can fit far more information just transmitting something on certain networks. And so there's lots of talk of lots of things.
Yeah, I still remember, and I think this might have been for you, Jack, is when we got the first what we call cell tower at the ice arena. That's technically it's not a cell tower. It's the PCS system. And I remember getting the education in council in the city, getting education on the fact that cell phones are not going to be around anymore. It's going to be this PCS, which they don't use the term anymore, so I don't even know what it is anymore. But it's the new style of tower. So we were back then going, no way. And they were saying, yeah, there's going to have to be a tower every 3 miles, because back then cell phone towers were 10 miles apart, and you didn't have good coverage. But I just remember him saying that, yeah, there's going to be towers. All we could vision is just towers everywhere, and I mean, we spent, I think we had a moratorium even before the tower came in to make sure we had ordinances in place. So it's and we thought we were nimble back then, and the way things are changing now, technology wise. Yeah, I think we need this consultant to advise us on what's happening.
So my question is, the word feasibility study, is that talking about what the consultants are doing, or is that talking about, do we have a need for one? Because obviously we have a need.
We have the need. The feasibility study is really what are our options in providing this service. So we would probably just eliminate that word from the proposal.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think, yes, I get why you're asking that. I mean, it is a feasibility study when it comes down to it. We're seeing what options are available. See if you can't find a better word for that, I guess. So
yeah, it's again, it may be semantics, but maybe we could change it to City of East Bethel Broadband Service Plan Study, something like that.
Yeah, it's like, it's not an evaluation whether we need broadband. I mean, that's like you said, Suzanne. Tim knows it's a need. So okay, any other questions or comments to Jack on this? All right, I believe that brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian seconds. Jack, can you take roll call vote, please?
Shelley Beck,
Hi.
Tim Harrington,
Aye.
Brian Mundell,
Aye.
Suzanne Urkel,
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye, and that motion passes. Thank you every night. Our work meeting is now adjourned.